Alright, so we're looking at our table here in our table HTML table W3 schools off of our CIS table element here, this very first one. We're working within our editor here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab this table and I'm going to copy it to my actual web page content just to move it, and I'm going to see Control Copy to save it for a second. So I'm going to go to my text editor, and in my demo I have a space down here called my table 1 demo is in my header, but then I have a spot in a division in a container where I want to place this table code, and I'll work with it here within my own region. I'm going to see if I can just automatically tab these over. I can, alright. So here's my table. If I was to save that, and if I was to look at that page, I'm going to look here. If I refresh my page, I get a little table. Okay, it has no markings and nothing on it, so I'm going to need to add that code to my CSS. So in here, this is where I would add my table code. So the first things we can do is just say table, because since this is a HTML element, I don't have to specify a hashtag or anything like that. I didn't give it a special ID. What we can do is we can add the border. So I'm going to use my border. I'm going to use the shorthand. Remember, it's 1. It's the thickness, and then it is the style, and then it is the color. And I was using the hexadecimal value. And so I'm going to hit Control Save it, see if that works. If I go back to my table page, I'm just going to refresh. I expect there to be a box. Okay. Now I want to style the row and the header and the cells too. Now I'm going to do it individually just so you can kind of see it. If I were to put, say, table header and then table row on there, Control Save, let's see what that does. I'm going to hit refresh. So there's my table header, and then I'm going to do my cells. So it doesn't make the row. So I'm going to go back, and instead of putting in the row here, I'm going to put in the D. Control Save, then F5. Then I get my lines around it. I'm going to style that header region to be black and white. So black, a solid black with a white text. So that's my header. So my header I have here, but I'm going to do TH because it's already a selector element. I'm not making it. Oops. And I'm going to say background color, and it's going to be black. Oops, something happened. I don't like what just happened there. It jumped. So I've got a TH element, background color, and hashtag 000. And then I want to make sure that I have color is hashtag FFF, which is white. I'm going to hit Control Save. I'm going to just, before I go too far into anything, I'm going to just make sure that works. Now what I want to do is collapse those lines. So this has a box around it, and this has a box around it. Each one of these elements have a box. I want to collapse all of that so that it's just one line instead of multiple lines. And so I'm going to do that on the table. I'm going to say border, and then I'm going to say border, and I'm going to say border collapse, and then the option is collapse. And I'm going to say Control Save. I'm going to look and make sure that that is actually working. Alright, now I've got that. Okay, so those are some basic elements. Now let's try some other things. So this looks like what I'm doing here, basically, I don't have the collapse on here, but I can add the collapse to my table by simply adding it right here. As a matter of fact, I could just go steal it off of my code real quick here. So this is why it's kind of fun to kind of work back and forth. All right. Now what I want to do is I want you to see that when you can also add width elements, because once we put on width 100%, it's going to then allow that this table then to expand within the size of that space. I could actually say fill up only 50% of the container that you're in. So however big that container is, it'll only fill up 50% of it. And so that's what I'm going to say on mine. Let's say Control Copy. I'm going to go here to my code. I'm going to go down to my table. I'm going to say width 50%. Control Save. I'm going to just look and see what that looks like. Oh, here I'm going to refresh. Now I have it as I scale my box. So if I'm working on a large screen, it'll fill up that. If I go down to a phone, it'll fill that. And so it's responding now to the size of my window. I want it to be centered, and so I should be able to center it. I would want it to be centered based on the container that it's in. So right now I have it within my container. I would probably put in a line center in there to see if I can do that. But before we get into all that, we're going to continue looking at these different attributes. And then we'll get more into styling it. Okay, so if we go back to the project, so we've talked about table, the header, the rows, and that. You can also look at what's called, I'm going to close these out before I get too many. There's footer elements, or there's groups. And we can actually group the head region, the foot region, and the body elements together. So I can say, look, this group from here to here, these rows make up the region of the head, or the header. Okay, so I have my rows and my months, and I designate those, but I can just kind of specify them as a header. I can specify these that'll go into the foot region, and I can specify this that goes into the body region. Now, look at the order is out of order. We have a head, we have a foot, we have a body, whereas you would think you would have the header region, then the body, and then the foot would be at the end. So if we look at this and say try this yourself, notice that we get some pretty interesting things. We have our header region. We've given it a CSS color of green. So anything in the header is green. Anything in the body is blue. All the text in the body is blue. All the text in the footer is red. And if we look at the table itself, notice that it was written out of order. We have the head and the head. We have a footer and the footer. But it's coming second. You would think the body content would be there. Then you have the body and all of the content here, all within the table. But yet when it's lined up in the table itself, it's automatically put in order, which is really a pretty cool And then we can, obviously we can style those things as we go along. So a border, we could put in our border collapse. We could designate rows. We could change the color of the rows, or we could say, we could either say this row, we could add a style to this row, this particular row. This row is in the footer. If we wanted to, we could change all the rows in the footer to have a background color. So we could actually say, we could add the background color element. Background color. And let's say just it is currently, the text is red. So just for visibility's sakes, if I said yellow. So it does that whole row. I didn't have to go in and do the row or color the row. I just color that grouping. And so if we wanted to, we could use that as a way to style something. So I just think that's really an awesome tool to use. So you could do these things for your own. You could group them together. It has the same elements. All we're doing is just wrapping them around the header or a header grouping, which I think is pretty awesome. Now, another thing that is really interesting is being able to add the caption to your table. And so when you do that, you've got basically the same content, except within the table tags, selectors here, you're going to put in a caption that has got an opening and closing tab here. So in your HTML, you've got your caption added, and then it puts the caption up at the top. So let's try that. Let's just copy this. I'm going to copy this to my code here. So inside the table, I'm going to add a caption, and I'm going to just leave it there. Control save. I'm going to go to my web page here. Notice that here is my unrefreshed page, and when I refresh it, it adds that caption. And so what I would want to do is you could style your caption if you wanted to. So if we wanted to, we could style our caption element. Let's say we wanted to do that. Let's see what happens. Okay, so anytime you start adding new contents like this, I'm going to add my caption elements here, and then if I wanted to, I'm going to give myself some room below here. I could add font. I could add my font size. And I'm going to say 3M just to make something ridiculous, just to see if it changes anything. So I've added my caption. My font size is going to be 3M. I'm going to go to my table. I'm going to refresh, and notice that there I got a very, very large font, and which is exactly what I expected. Now, that's a ridiculously big thing. However, it is just makes it so that I can see it. Now, if I wanted to change that color, I like to keep mine in alphabetical order, but let's say I wanted to change it to a gray or something, or maybe my blue. I could do that. I have a blue designated right up here. This probably won't look very good, but I'm going to just throw that hexadecimal value here. This is a blue color that I've taken off my website color palettes. I'm going to take that just because I like to keep things alphabetical. I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to say I'm going to save that. I'll go to my table. I'm going to refresh, and there it is. Now, I wouldn't use blue necessarily. That isn't a good choice because of it's a contrasting color, so it's a little bit difficult to see. But you can at least see that it's changing and I'm controlling it. I'd probably just leave it in the black. So that's looking at our header. We've done our captions. We've done some of our responsiveness. We've done our header groups in this video. Now we're going to go and start looking at some other things in the next video.